I think a really good way to start would be to do like a brief introduction,
Introduction.
where we're coming from, and what sort of experience and background we have in the areas we're going to talk about. I'll go ahead and go first. I'm a musician for the most part, and I have a really big interest in digital marketing, business entrepreneurship, and yeah, that's the reason that I'm here willing to connect with you, because you're somebody else that yeah, for as long as I could remember, creating and learning about businesses has been really important to you. How would you do like a brief introduction
Well,
for
shit,
yourself?
man. Like for me, well, I've been in business since I was like 18, and still kind of like I've tried different things, right? Like I did the gold teeth, the grills. I did like Mexican food and kind of learning there, and then took like a pause, and then like went into construction, and then kind of took the construction route, and then went to school, and then like I landed as a notary. That kind of helped me get back into business, and then into taxes, and then recently I tried my contractor's license as a contractor. Did that for a couple of years, lost a bunch of money, and then I realized like numbers are really my strong thing. While as a PE at a construction company, I got the chance to do like the numbers, risk assessment, and like cost entries, data entry, and that just kind of like really helped me.
That's where you're locked in.
Yeah, that's where I locked in, and then doing the taxes, that kind of helped me, and then I just decided to grow my tax business, and then since I'm doing my MBA, do a consulting business, which should is generating right now, but it is going to come in full circle as a legit business, registered and everything, like in the next couple of weeks or whatever. So that's kind of where I'm at, and that's why too I want to do this podcast, or just kind of get the content out there for the discussions we've been having, and
Yeah,
as far as introduction goes,
I think it's a good a one good title to put that. It's like a conversation, because I think something that we'll dive into is how a lot of what exists right now has just been given new names. I think not too long ago, to just kind of just dive into it, I was talking about how like, oh, the old traditional marketing funnel's dead, lead nurturing, it's all about short form content, attention economy, and all this stuff. It gets me thinking, it's not necessarily that there's a new wheel being reinvented. We're just creating new perspectives. And I think it's a really you're a really good person in your position due to the experiences that you said you've come from the food industry, hospitality, labor work, and to the point where you're running your own business now, that you're the perfect person to kind of go over, or just shoot ideas back and forth on how you've seen businesses and entrepreneurship change and evolve, or how would you describe it through your experiences 10 years ago and into now?
well, it's funny because like when you were saying like my resume, like it's different. What we're gonna touch here, like more on the business side, like even though I did have like work regular jobs, like I was like in pizza, and in food, even like as a worker, and gardening as a worker. But I think we were talking about it earlier, where it's like you fail so much that it's like you gotta make it something positive. Like you gotta take those failures and those attempts, like, because like if I go back, like it's always been like in the back of my mind, like I gotta try it again. Like the grills, I think I tried like 3 or 4 years off and on, and like quit my job, literally making no money, to like, okay, I'm making sales. Like, what do I do with that money? Or like, like time management, cash flow. Like, you know, you know, I learned entrepreneurship or business like from nobody.
Doing it.
Doing it, exactly, doing it.
So would you say, or yeah, that's a pretty good place to start. Kind of pace things out. Is you would say that running a grill, jewelry, high end jewelry business specifying in gold teeth, also known as grills, was where you would say you just dove head in, and how would you like talk about some of your experiences uh, getting clients, getting the brand awareness from that
yeah,
era?
we talked about it where it was like I call it guerrilla marketing, just like straight savage, like direct approach. I remember like the way I got the job to start as like, a poor guy working. It was like, okay, here are these flyers. Let me see you hand them out. And we passed by, right? Like it was on the bus. I was going home, and I saw the grill spot, and we went. And I told you we were gonna get you one. But they're all the way to San Francisco, and then we ran into them on Santa Clara. And then I asked for the guy for a job when we got there, and like the guy went to. I was working at a pizza place at the mall, and he goes there, and I see him, and I'm getting off of work. We're texting. He's like, "Okay, you want to work for me? Let me see what you're gonna do with these flyers. Like, let me see you get the clients, because he had just gone into business for himself. Like, he was under his mom owned like a big shop in Hayward, and so I was like, okay, like let me show you. And like what came to me was just like quick on my feet, like going to people that kind of looked like categorizing people, target audience. Yeah, it's not discrimination, but you know your client, like, because I know myself to an extent of what culture
And some
and all
of these
that.
characteristics would be like the appearance in their clothing.
Exactly.
It would be where the grill would accessorize. Like in that time, if I remember correctly, things are a lot more like hyper divided. Where not if you listen to rock, you didn't necessarily identify as a listener of rap, so your appearance kind of reflected that as well. So yeah, I could definitely understand how being able to have come from that space where you knew a lot of people were in demand of this good, you could identify them by their outward appearance. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So it was like, okay, hand out these flyers. Let me see you work. Man, I went out there, handed them out, started talking. Hey, we're here. This is our location. This is our number. We'll give you some discount. And it was like that was my introduction into like literally just like business. Like that, which led me to further develop when I branched out on my own after his business flopped and kind of take on those projects. And I learned a lot by making like mistakes of like, I had a wholesale. Then it was like, okay, obviously I didn't know about, okay, I did have some idea unconsciously, obviously, like, okay, how long is it going to take me to get it, to go, to deliver it, to, how much to collect, am I pricing it right, how much am I really making, am I factoring in all these costs, things that I know now that a business, like, has to know, like, has to have an idea for, right, like, what's it really costing you, because you could, like I seen it on Shark Tank, right, where it's like, how much are you selling it for? I'm selling it for $7. How much is it costing you to make? It's costing me $5 to make, right? Or it's costing me $2 or $1. Like, what does it really cost you? And then they'll grill them like, are you factoring this? Are you putting this? And you putting that? And I wasn't. You gotta have like a degree of reality, of honesty, to just say, okay, this is what it's really costing me, or this is things that I'm not factoring in.
Since you were like really in the ground making the sales, these weren't just projections you were making, these were actually numbers that you had to crunch to see if it was going to be like a profitable sale at the point. So what I'm getting at is that it seems like from your experience at this jewelry business, just like 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, the biggest areas of business that you got experience was client acquisition, brand awareness, and logistics.
Yeah. So yeah, man, and also like about you, like I know you're doing the music thing. I know that you've been in the music thing like 10, 15 years as well. I would even venture out to say even almost 20, almost 18 years or whatever. But like, what has that developed to? Where is it starting? Like, what does legitimize you? Because I know like the reason I brought you into it, we're gonna work on this, is because I admired like the product that you're making, like the sound that's coming out of the the business that you're now forming, because it wasn't like a business for you to start off, right? It was more of like a creative outlet,
yeah.
And now it's like we were talking where it's like now it's like a full on business. You got this whole vision of this sound and this artist, and you're no longer like how we were saying like, and the same with me. Like I'm not in a position where it's like how can I benefit, but where can I be of service? Like where does my service fit? And when you're of service, like now versus before, it's like now you have your market, which before it was like you were saying, like I need to get in the market, I need to jump in, I need an opportunity to get in the market, and now you're creating your market, which is very different. That I think that even in business schools, like sometimes isn't clearly translated or explained, like
Yeah.
And you could tell us more about how, especially you in the music, it's like, oh, like you need to work with me, or this is what I have, and I kind of faced it, but I think like you touch on it very clear as far as like how that happens in a business or market, and that's very competitive. Like you said, there's a lot of talent, and sometimes talent isn't enough. Like sometimes the humanity of things, or even the business aspect, where because of this channel or because of our videos, we're gonna go ahead and explain our experiences and literally develop business practices and experiences that could save people time and money and energy. In situations where we've had to hit the wall, or like, and we brought it up before, where it's like how does like somebody pick themselves back up when it's like this happened to me, that happened to me, this person did this, or things like that. Like we've been able to be resilient and obviously keep working on the crafts, and we're obviously trying to show, hey, like we've been around, like we're doing this and we're not going to stop, and we're going to give this drama or this experience to what we see and what we're doing. So if you want to tell us about that.
Yeah, actually, my birthday wasn't too long ago, and I was actually kind of counting back. Like, this is technically, I'm going on the beginning of my 20th year. It was around like I was 12 years old, starting to make music. But yeah, I came out of passion, a local buzz, local music buzz was happening, specifically here in the Bay Area, where Bay artists that were like local were getting radio airplay. I mean, I was only like in middle school, but just hearing how like how close, how many degrees of separation and closeness I felt, it kind of like woke up that artist in me. I definitely wouldn't say that like. And I think this goes, this can be applied to any industry. Like a lot of times, even if you're not born with it, having that sheer grit and determination to become it is what is going to distinguish you down your journey, down the path. Because it wasn't until probably like 4 or 5 years ago that I started to consider it as a business per se, because I was starting to become more confident in my product. I didn't even necessarily notice the music, the vibe that I was going for was a product in its own, when it wasn't until I started to package it and brand it and try to start getting ears on it that I made the realization that like, hey, as much of a fan of business and entrepreneurship I am, as much as I look up to the Elon Musks and Jeff Bezos, like I'm kind of creating my space, creating my role in that space through music by creating a brand behind my artist project, and yeah, navigating it more as a business than a creative effort, because I feel like I'm sure a lot of the creative type are going to be able to identify with the fact that there's just something that just feels like, I don't know, like magical, intangible, like you just can't touch it, this art, this feeling that it can invoke. But as much as mystery there is behind that, there is like a concrete business that can be produced and made out of that. And the realization just came from, yeah, living in Los Angeles, seeing artists come up, seeing artist projects completely disappear, and seeing that no matter how good your music is, having a stronger business is what helps perpetuate a lot of these people. Like it's been probably like 5 years that I've really been locked into LA, but if I can go back there now, it'll be like 20 to 10% of the people that were going hard still maintaining doing business, still keeping their brands up, and still running a business. One of the biggest artist that right now comes to mind is a artist by the name of Gesture. I remember I think he was an LA transplant, and he was just starting to get his name out there. He would be doing a lot of the similar parties and venues that I do, but now he's at the point where he's growing, like playing EDC, playing some of the biggest electronic festivals. But a lot of the people that started off at the same time as him aren't even functioning anymore. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and that's why I think it's critical, or like I can't even like emphasize enough like how important it is to really discuss it, because I've like come to terms with like even sometimes people that are successful doing what they're doing, right? But like I was telling my son, like I almost studied history, and and I feel like history kind of can give us like an insight, right? Maybe not exactly, but at least like we can elaborate, like as humans make like consciousness or rationale of what the events occurred, right? So what can we learn from the failures? What can we learn from the successes, right? Like, and we were talking earlier, like sometimes it comes down to team, right? Like what team is there? Like what team have like you found yourself like being or developing, and same thing with me, like almost having like this team approach, team mindset.
that's a really good. I like that. I think that'd be a really good direction to head into next. Like, how would you describe how you work in a team? It was dope how you mentioned that being of service. Like now, I don't even like. It's crazy, especially in the music space. Like it's no longer like what can I get out of this person. Like I know it sounds kind of like Machiavellian, but like being in LA, that was really like the energy. It was just people that I hung around with, but it was very Machiavellian. Like everybody, what can I get from this person? What am I getting out of hanging out with them, sessioning with them? And I'm at a complete different space where I'm like, how can I be of service? Like not necessarily,
Like a charity, right?
yeah, not necessarily like a charity, but like, what is it from my experience that I could use to help elevate this project that they're working on? So going back to it, how would you describe your experience working with teams, if you had one at all, say in the grill eras or early in your business ventures, to how you experience teams 10, 15 years later?
Yeah, well, it's funny because like I had a team, not knowing that I did like early on, and not really like giving it value. I was 18, 19 years old, 18 years old, and my baby mom at the time had set up this whole team, and she was running it. Like she was really good, coordinating and seeing talent, and obviously I could see the talent and saw the personalities, but I didn't know exactly how to channel it, and she did. And but I didn't like really tap into the team mentality until I got into the union, right? So I got into the union, labor's union, and it's like collective bargaining. You kind of get into the collective mindset, which more or less kind of in some extent goes against like the free market. It's self interest, which kind of like I guess is kind of where everybody kind of gets it, like to a degree. If you're hot, I can put this over here for you. And
Thanks.
yeah, and so like so after that, like when I got in, like I was able to experience it, like what it was, because like there, given the size of the projects, there's no way you can get it done alone. Given the size, amount of material, man hours, like if you're not part of the team, you don't come back the next day. You don't learn the trade, and you like. I think that essentially you're like dead weight, to say it like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
no.
like being able to get involved, being able to pretty much like jump in.
Learn different methods of communication to be able to effectively get the job done.
Yeah, yeah. So like, I mean, communication is big and it still is in teams. There it was like culture adaptation, culture sensitivity, a lot of things that are talked about now. But I think what really got me in was also like figuring out that I'm still like an individual even though I'm part of the collective. You know, like
knowing that you're not sacrificing your autonomy to be able to be a part of the collective.
Yeah, and being part of the collective, like you could just attack so much more and get so much more done. And like even if like my part was small or what I thought was small or my contribution is small, like it becomes very critical, like in the trust that you also build trust and you also kind of see a different side of humanity working together, which I think like on another thing which like other forms of government kind of aspire to do, which is like kind of see that. But like as far as like the trades go, like that like integral part of the team, like it builds this trust. You see like this output and the satisfaction too, and you kind of also have this like sensation that you can be trusted, and that you are a contributing member of a team.
Right, sick. That so what I'm hearing is like you didn't know how to necessarily lead a team, how to or just you didn't know how to be a part of a team when you were diving into your first entrepreneurial ventures, but you knew how to communicate to the leader of the team, which kind of allowed you to be exposed to the importance of the team. And it wasn't until you joined more high stakes, or you were doing more high stakes work, like in the trades unions, where being the team, like just what am I trying to say? Like being the team, it was gonna make or break you. So it wasn't until, and I don't think that every time it needs to come down to that, but it sounds pretty similar to what I had to go through, where it wasn't until I realized that the team, knowing that a goal, knowing that reaching success is a team effort, I think is really what I'm trying to get out of here.
Yeah. No, yeah, like for sure. So like that's kind of one of the things that like as far as like businesses now that I'm involved in, like or for example, like a client of mine, like he has his solid workers. I was just on the phone with the potential client, like she has her solid workers. Like building that team is a skill, and in the MBA class it kind of tells that all those skills can be learned, but also like we gotta hone on that, right? So
you gotta know what to look for in the talent, and I think that's a good place for me to kind of interject my experience with teams. So like initially 15-20 years ago, I was still kind of in school, and like my peers were the people that I went to school with, so I didn't really have or there was actually there were certain people that I could select to be a team, but because I could only reach the people that were in my classes or friends, I didn't know any better that like, oh, if this guy can help me get my music heard, he has his own way of doing it, as opposed to like, what is it that he's doing, having the curiosity to know, like, and is it like effective, what is he just nowadays there's like stream farming. Are they stream farming? Like, how is it that they get those views? What is it that they're doing? How do they write their songs? Is it their own like original penmanship that's going into the composition, or are they able to work collaboratively with the songwriter? And that's at the space where I'm at now, where it's not necessarily just delegating roles like, hey, I need a marketing person, I need a branding person. and I've given myself the exercise to learn a little bit of every aspect of the music business, from artist development to co-writing and collaborating with other writers, to be able to not necessarily be a jack of all trades or an expert in all those fields, is to actually know what somebody's bringing to the table when we're having a conversation of potentially even bringing a project together. Because I remember like 10, 15 years ago, I was trying to work with anybody and everybody, and I needed to make sure that or I was on the look for somebody to get me opportunities, as opposed to now where I am a lot more selective about that. And because I know a little bit of every space of the aspects of the industry, I'm very selective on who, like, I can vet them if I say I'm like looking for somebody to help with running digital ads. Like, how familiar are they with Facebook Manager? What are some of their highest grossing converting ads? What is their like target ad spend? And these are all like things that I had to experiment with. I had to put my own skin in the game, throw my own money from my own jobs, and just see how those things operate, to be able to speak that language, to be able to like learn to communicate to the person what I want.
Yeah. No, and that's tight, because I think we were talking earlier where like a master class with like Mark Cuban on the app and stuff. Like he says, like it's the entrepreneur has to learn it all, and being in the business program, like it's like you get like a double take. Like I think like a lot of like I'm emphasizing like as far as the consulting goes, like a lot of my clients is like, well, let's keep track of those numbers. Like, yeah, we'll run through the numbers, we'll look at it, we'll make suggestions. Like, hey man, you like stay on top of them, or let's hire on the bookkeeping side, and give you accurate data, because especially where I'm at now, given my position, right, like as a PE or whatever on my 9 to 5, and looking at the numbers, the data is so important. Like that's why I kind of like platforms like TikTok, or I haven't been heavy on other ones, but like the analytics are pretty legit. Like if I'm like, okay, if it's costing me X and I'm keeping 25% retention or overall retention, but like let's look at the meat of things. Like I learned a lot being on this project where we're at, where it's like over $100 million, and looking at the accounting, looking at the man hours, looking at the material, like that's the construction side. There could be other aspects as far as like given the industry, right? But in general, when you're looking and tracking of those things, like you can make really really well-informed decision, like cut a project or ask for more money given a certain amount of material, certain amount of hours, like like reviewing the plans, like are things always changing? Like I'm sure it could be different, but it can apply to small projects too, right? So I think just being able to see that as a business, and kind of like, well, not kind of, but actually say, hey, you know what, we got to get 30%. What do we have to do to get our 30% cut? And then out of that 30%, 18% has to be pure profit. Like what are our targets? So that's kind of taught me like the hard numbers of things, right? But when you're a business, how do you visualize that? How do you target that? And the reason I also want to do this, or the reason why I'm emphasizing and learning more about business and trying to explain to clients, like how do you get to those margins that you want? Like nobody wants to be in business to lose money. Mm-hmm. Even though like if you're losing money and you're attempting business, you should capitalize it and you should report it, and you should obviously say, hey, this is legitimately what I'm doing. This is how much I'm paying in X amount of dollars. But also like, okay, what are your goals? How are you going to increase that, or how are you really going to like make the margins that you want? And that's kind of what's keeping me right now like really interested in business, right? Like how
you're no longer just playing with projections or like textbook examples. You've worked your way into a role where you're actually doing that fucking work.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that's
tight,
fire,
man.
bro.
It's tight.
That's fucking crazy.
And I'm trying to simplify it for people, so it's like if these guys can do 30% gross, 18% net, like how can we get you there? Mm-hmm. Understanding the business, like decisions that happen. I mean, in the business class, like we studied various industries, medical, right? Shipping, um, manufacturing, clothing, and it's like we got to find the commonalities to bring them up to profitability, right? I think like that's one of the things that essentially what our services do now more than anything, right? But like there's so much more behind that, right? Because there's all this, I think, like human behavior or speculation that goes on. But I think like if business classes have taught me anything, it's like they business classes drive, like you can learn leadership, you can learn management, you can learn the numbers, you can learn like, then why can't we come up with the formula, to capitalize on seeing that it is possible to come in and deliver, because as a business, volatility could be dangerous. Volatility can cause confusion. You want a steady ship. You want a steady ship. I get it. Some businesses play in the gray areas, and I've learned that it's important that you play up to the line. Don't cross the line, but that doesn't mean you can't play at the line. And it's like, as a business, like especially like the business that I've been involved in, it's always been like at the line, and do you cross that line, or like you don't know where that line is, and it's kind of like not only finding what business you want, but like really like like because I've been like, I remember when I was in the food business, I was lost, man. Like I was lost. Like it wasn't something like I'd ever like see myself doing, and it was like really stressful. Like
you didn't know how you could apply the experiences and the interests you had into that space.
Exactly. Now, like I look back, and then it's like, man, we could have,
delivery, online orders, fucking digital branding,
like
social media ads.
There's just so much like operations, like simplification, like a certain marketing, like so much that it's just like, that's why like I've heard that like it's sometimes okay to give ideas out, like especially like right now with content. Like I'm never gonna do those businesses again, probably, right? Because I like what I do, but that doesn't mean that like whoever's watching or whoever can learn from it, like not get like, hey, like yeah, you should do this, but also how. There's so many free, I call it game, where there's so much free education online, or there's so many means that don't cost money. Like we just saw somebody right now, right? Like a neighbor or business, kind of almost a competitor or whatever. I don't really see anything as competition. There's enough for everybody.
Another service provider in the same space.
Provider in the same space. Like they want to sell you this whole package, and they want to arbitrage and put money in their pocket. But to me, it's like, here's the information. Do what you want. Like essentially, business consulting exists for a reason. Once you are limited on experience, and I get it. They can consult somebody that has less experience, like and that's fine. I've taken businesses and for a fee, let's get you better. But obviously, at the level that we're playing, is like we've been doing it so much, so long, or it's like when some businesses are just like learning, or I don't know how much they're moving, but like if their idea isn't going to put money in my client's pocket, if the idea I give them isn't going to put money in their pocket, I would be stealing,
Yeah.
And it's just like, is there a follow-up? Like, okay, you've offered consulting. Well, what's the follow-up? What do you have at stake? Your reputation? And I think that's key, because accountability is a big part of business. And the way I think accountability should be measured in business is dollars and reputation, So it's interesting to kind of see like where they have the rundown, but it's also interesting, like, cool, like I wonder how they're doing everything else. But I mean, I can't be concerned with that. Like, hey, get to know them, ask ideas, and
because
this is
any time that you're not paying attention to your business, you're not paying attention to your business.
Exactly. And it's like I could be breaking my head on how I'm going to bring in more work, but fortunately, or as a sign, a positive sign, it's like I got plenty of work. Like it's just kind of like management right now is I was consulting, and it came up that my management skill has to get like discipline. You know, we go in and we have tasks, and you know, there's things that we need to do to kind of keep operational because we got overhead now. We got, you know, we got to stay constant with the content, like as an approach. And you know, I also feel like content kind of like gives me that that reassurance that I'm taking care of my business.
Yeah.
You know, and
because I think I mentioned earlier how like it's not necessarily that marketing funnels are dead, nurturing an email list is dead. It's we're having to do that same thing but with different tactics. Instead of creating like in the 90s a weekly or bi-weekly email that gave them tips and tricks, we're doing a recording of an hour conversation that we can cut up into 20 clips, and somehow those are going to find you on your platform of your preference.
Yeah.
We're no longer betting on like, okay, the value of a subscriber to my email list. It that value still exists, but it's in another medium.
Yeah, and at the marketing level, where I just in the business program, like it's like, yeah, it's cool, like everything's rebranded, but a lot of it is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Print, online, video, it's all like it's been around for 100 years. It just gets renamed, right? Like like kind of like kids in high school, like it's the same thing, but it's just like
they just give it their own slang.
Yeah. So same thing
like,
with the marketing.
Like what, passing a flyer, what that the owner of that business was first trying to test you without telling you what he was testing you. It's like, how are your client acquisition skills? What is your brand awareness? How do you exemplify brand awareness? By doing these flyers?
Well, yeah, and that's key for a business owner because, you know, they're taking on risk by giving them a paycheck. You know, like I got a client right now that like we had to come up with NDAs, you know, get a lawyer's advice. Like, what can we do? Like, these guys are taking our clients, taking extra work. It's hurting our image and brand. Like, what's the risk and the trade-off? Like, I'm paying these guys a salary, training guys, and then they're running off. And especially in California, it's like a non-compete state, or like a state where you can't prohibit another person from going to get a job. So I think that, you know, like those are very key and specific like problems depending on the market. So, you know, like there's this thing called like goodwill. Like, okay, like you're gonna work for me, goodwill. Even though like I've been in a company before. The
accounting ledger, goodwill.
Goodwill in the sense that like
or actual like goodwill,
like good faith.
Yeah,
like
good
okay,
faith,
like
okay.
goodwill. I'm not gonna compete against you. I'm gonna, you know, distance myself from here. I'm not gonna touch your clients out of goodwill because, you know, I'm recognizing you're giving me a job. You know, you give me an opportunity to learn a trade. And you know, some people respect it, some don't. And I mean, that's kind of what keeps California at the 6% GDP or whatever, right? Because, you know, other states, they'll hold you to like non-compete
clause,
and I think
radius clauses, where it's just like you can't do this type of work within so many miles.
Right, and California's been a big benefit of that. So, like on the consulting, like I wonder if my neighbors do it at that extent. You know, what kind of issues are they like solving? You know, because I know what I'm charging and what I kind of like take on, but it's like I still say till this day, like where there's chaos, there's money. Solving people's problems is money. Solving a business's problem is money. You know, like one of my favorite things to do is look at companies in distress and then see them like turn around, you know, because you kind of see like the whole human, like
what the fire that business owner is burning inside when it becomes their business is on fire. You can tell what it was that they started.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's like you kind of see like reinvention, you know, like some people call it ashes out of the phoenix, but like I think that's like when they're pivoting or like being able to just like reinvent themselves and really recreate themselves and really put themselves out there. And it's really interesting to see that, because how many times like can you do that in business is literally how long you're gonna stay in business. You know, because like
That's I think that is an ability in business that I was completely unaware of when I started to see my music projects, my other abilities in the entrepreneurship space. That grit, that determination, like I didn't know that was going to be something that like was going to help me get to the point that I am at, and it wasn't because it wasn't until I received all of those fails, all of those like moments of chaos that allowed me to learn that is a pivotal, that's like one of the most important skills in business to learn, on top of knowing your numbers, on top of being able to get clients, on top of being able to make money, is how to fail and fail quick and turn around and get the fuck up and keep on fucking going.
yeah, yeah,
plain
and I
simple.
think like I was just talking to somebody, like the carcasses of failed businesses is
Feed.
it's like huge, man. You just see bodies everywhere. Everyone's tried, and what on the consulting side we want to do is either prevent it, manage it, get you out of it, or reinvent yourself. But failure isn't an option. Like that's given, right? So, you know, it's kind of scary to say, because it's like, you know, we're probably working against like the mentality of like, well, it might be not for me, but it might be the market. You know, like I was like trying to do like stitches of like companies of like this makeup company, they're you know, certain product, like some loved it, but because they weren't seeing the volume, they're gonna cut it, but it's a really great product. I mean, how does a business do that? Like, you spend all this in R&D, it's a great product, why are you gonna take it off the shelves? You know, like what's the X element? And as a business consulting, like we look for that. Like, what is it? There has to be an answer. You look at math, you look at science, like you can't just like, I can't do this. Like, and we take an approach. It has to have a creative solution, right? Like some of
Being able to think creatively towards solutions, I think, is another really big aspect of being able to not necessarily like succeed. That, oh, if you're able to think creatively to solve is going to ensure success, it's an acumen, like it's like a prerequisite. Like if you don't have that ability, want that ability, or desire to strive to be able to have that creative thinking, problem solving thinking skills, it could be what is stopping a lot of people from reaching their goals.